The Meridian survey ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system's Kuiper belt, its sophisticated sensors immediately beginning their careful analysis of humanity's home system. Captain Vira stood at the command center, her iridescent scales shifting colors as she reviewed the preliminary data. The humans had expanded significantly since their last survey, with colonies now dotting the asteroid belt and mining operations extending well beyond Mars. Primitive, but surprisingly industrious, she noted to her science officer. Their resistance to extreme environments continues to puzzle our xenobiologists. No species should be able to thrive in such harsh conditions. The science officer, a younger Meridian named Kral, flicked his antenna in agreement. Their homeworld alone should have killed them generations ago. Extreme temperature variations, powerful storms, tectonic activity, and dangerous wildlife. Yet they persist. And now they dare to expand into space that rightfully belongs to the Meridian Empire. Vira's scales darkened with disapproval. The Council has finally authorized us to remind them of their place in the galactic order. The Meridian Empire had watched Earth's expansion with growing concern. Humanity's rapid technological advancement and their inexplicable ability to survive in environments that would kill most sentient species made them an unpredictable factor in galactic politics. The Empire had decided it was time to contain this potential threat before it grew too large to manage. Their first target was Nova Proxima, humanity's most distant mining colony. The operation was meant to be simple, a show of force to demonstrate the Empire's superior technology and military might. A single Meridian battle cruiser would be more than sufficient to handle any resistance from the primitive human defenders. They were wrong. The Meridian battle cruiser Eternal Dawn dropped out of hyperspace near Nova Proxima, its weapon systems powered up and shields at maximum strength. Captain Vira expected the humans to either surrender immediately or attempt some futile resistance with their primitive weaponry. Instead, her sensors detected nothing. No transmissions, no power signatures, no signs of life. "Report," she demanded, her scales shifting to a wary orange. "The colony appears abandoned, Captain," her tactical officer responded. "But our long-range scans are experiencing unusual interference. There's something wrong with the local space-time metrics." Before Vira could respond, proximity alarms screamed across the bridge. The void around her ship erupted with activity as dozens of small objects suddenly appeared, their stealth fields dropping to reveal human combat drones. They were crude by Meridian standards, little more than armored boxes with engines and weapon systems. Vira almost laughed. These primitives think they can challenge us with such basic technology. Raise shields to maximum and prepare tow. The first drone slammed into the Eternal Dawn's shields at relativistic speed. The impact overwhelmed the shield generators instantly, the kinetic energy converting to a blast of plasma that carved through the ship's armor like paper. More drones followed, each impact precisely calculated to disable critical systems. "Impossible," Vira gasped as her mighty warship began to break apart. "Their weapons are too primitive to." A final drone pierced the bridge itself, and Vira's last thought was the realization that the Meridian Empire had made a terrible mistake. The response from Earth was not what the Empire expected. There were no angry transmissions, no threats of retaliation, no emotional outbursts that characterized what they knew of human behavior. Instead, there was silence, complete and absolute silence. Every human ship in Meridian space quietly disappeared. Trade routes were abandoned. Communication ceased. It was as if humanity had suddenly decided to isolate itself completely from the galaxy. The Meridian High Command celebrated what they saw as a victory. "See how they cower," Grand Admiral Zex declared to the Imperial Court. "One demonstration of our power, and they retreat to their death world like the primitives they are." But in the darker corners of the Empire, disturbing reports began to surface. Key military installations reported strange sensor ghosts. Supply ships disappeared without a trace. Vital communication relays experienced inexplicable failures. Each incident was minor, easily explained away by equipment malfunctions or pilot error. None of the Meridian military commanders connected these events to their human problem. After all, how could primitives from a death world possibly operate so far from their home system with such sophistication? The idea was laughable. In a secure facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the status of Operation Silent Strike. Hundreds of human stealth ships were systematically mapping every weakness in the Meridian Empire's defenses. Each ship carried the latest in human military technology, not the crude, primitive weapons the Meridians had expected, but the products of centuries of warfare on a death world where only the most effective solutions ensured survival. Status report, Chen demanded. Phase 1 is complete, Admiral, her intelligence chief responded. We've identified 97 critical vulnerabilities in their defense network. Their arrogance makes them predictable. They've never faced an enemy that thinks like we do. Chen nodded, her expression grim. The Meridians had made the same mistake so many others had made throughout human history. They had confused humanity's willingness to cooperate with weakness, their adaptability with primitiveness, their survival instincts with savagery. They believe their technology makes them superior, Chen mused. They never stopped to consider that surviving on a death world requires something far more valuable than advanced technology. It requires innovation, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. She turned to her staff, each of them veterans of countless conflicts on humanity's harsh journey to the stars. The Meridians think they've taught us our place in the galaxy. It's time to show them how wrong they are. Initiate Phase 2. Throughout the Empire, human stealth ships received their orders. The time for observation was over. Now humanity would show the galaxy why you don't threaten a species that evolved on a death world. Grand Admiral Zex strode through the gleaming halls of the Meridian High Command, his scales shimmering with pride as subordinates bowed in his wake. The Empire's swift action against the humans had earned him considerable prestige among the Imperial Court. Yet something about the humans' complete withdrawal from galactic affairs nagged at him, a splinter of doubt he couldn't quite dislodge. Report, he commanded, entering the Strategic Command Center where his most trusted advisors awaited. The humans continue their isolation, Admiral, his intelligence chief responded. They've withdrawn all known assets to their home system. However, the chief's scales flickered with uncertainty. We've detected some anomalies in our outer territories. Explain, Zex demanded, his own scales darkening. Several automated outposts have gone dark. Long-range sensors are experiencing intermittent failures. 3 supply convoys have reported navigation system malfunctions, all minor incidents, but the pattern is unusual. Zex dismissed the concerns with a gesture. Technical failures, nothing more. The humans lack the technological sophistication to operate this far from their system. Focus on our expansion plans. The Empire will not be held back by fears of primitive Deathworlders. But across the vast expanse of Meridian space, humanity's response was already well underway. The stealth ships that had mapped the Empire's weaknesses now moved into position for the next phase of Operation Silent Strike. Aboard the Earth vessel Shadow Accord, Commander James Rodriguez watched his tactical display as his ship maintained its position less than a kilometer from a major Meridian communications hub. The Meridian sensors swept past his vessel repeatedly, but the advanced metamaterial hull rendered the ship completely invisible to their detection systems. Status report, he subvocalized through his neural link. All teams in position. His AI assistant responded directly into his mind. Phase 2 commencing in synchronized timeframe across all targeted locations. Rodriguez allowed himself a grim smile. The Meridians' greatest weakness wasn't their technology. It was their inability to conceive of warfare the way humans did. They thought in terms of fleets and battles, of shows of force and diplomatic leverage. They had never faced an enemy that thought in terms of system-wide infrastructure collapse. Throughout Meridian space, human ships began their coordinated strike. They didn't target military installations or population centers. Instead, they struck at something far more vital: the Empire's ability to function as a coherent whole. Quantum communication relays failed in cascading patterns, their delicate internal workings corrupted by precisely calibrated gravitational pulses. Navigation beacons began broadcasting subtly incorrect data, introducing errors so small they wouldn't be noticed until ships began missing their hyperspace jumps by thousands of kilometers. Supply chain management systems started experiencing random errors, causing shortages in some sectors and overwhelming stockpiles in others. None of these attacks appeared to be attacks at all. Each failure seemed to have a perfectly reasonable technical explanation. The Meridians, so confident in their technological superiority, never considered that a primitive species might be capable of such subtle warfare. In her underwater command center, Admiral Chen monitored the operation's progress. Status update: Phase 2 proceeding as planned, her AI assistant reported. Meridian response times to system failures are averaging 47% longer than baseline. Their maintenance crews are becoming overwhelmed. Military readiness is showing initial signs of degradation. Chen nodded. And our infiltration teams. All units report successful penetration of target facilities. The Meridian's biometric security systems remain focused on known galactic species. They never programmed their sensors to detect human biosignatures. This was another advantage of being underestimated. The Meridian's automated security systems were sophisticated, but they had been designed to detect and stop known threats. Humans, considered too primitive to pose a real danger, had never been included in their threat assessment protocols. Deep within the Meridian Empire's most secure research facility, Dr. Sarah Wong worked alongside alien scientists, her presence hidden by a combination of advanced holographic disguise technology and the Meridian's own prejudices. None of them questioned the presence of a new Centaurian researcher, too absorbed in their work to notice that Centaurians never actually joined the Empire's scientific community. Wong's real mission had nothing to do with research. Every day, she gathered crucial intelligence about the Empire's technological capabilities, searching for vulnerabilities that could be exploited when the time came for open conflict. The Meridian's casual discussions of their military technology told her exactly what they considered impossible, and therefore, what they had never defended against. Their entire defense doctrine is based on energy shields and plasma weapons, she reported through her encrypted neural link. They've never developed kinetic weapon technologies because they consider them primitive. Their shields are optimized to stop energy weapons, not physical impacts. This information was immediately transmitted to Earth's weapon development teams, who were already designing systems specifically tailored to exploit these weaknesses. Humanity had never abandoned primitive weapons. They had simply kept refining them alongside their energy weapon development. Back in the Meridian High Command, Grand Admiral Zex was beginning to feel the pressure of mounting system failures across the Empire. Supply shortages were causing unrest on frontier worlds. Ships were arriving late, or not at all due to navigation errors. Communication delays were creating coordination problems between military units. Find the cause of these failures, he commanded his staff, his scales now a constant swirl of worried colors. The Empire's stability depends on our infrastructure. We cannot allow technical malfunctions to undermine our authority. But they weren't looking for the right things. They searched their computer systems for viruses, examined their hardware for defects, and investigated their personnel for sabotage. They never thought to look for the subtle gravitational distortions that indicated cloaked human ships operating in their midst, or to question why certain new employees never seemed to show up in person at staff meetings. The humans, meanwhile, continued their methodical preparation for the next phase of their operation. Every system failure, every delayed shipment, every communication error was carefully orchestrated to create precisely the conditions they would need when the time came for open conflict. How long until the Empire's infrastructure degradation reaches critical levels? Admiral Chen asked her staff. At current progression, 3 more weeks, her intelligence chief responded. They're burning through resources and personnel trying to fix problems they don't understand. Their military readiness is down 23% and falling. When we finally reveal ourselves, they'll be operating at less than half their normal efficiency." Chen nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. The Meridians thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy. Instead, they're about to learn why Deathworld species survive. We don't just adapt to hostile environments. We learn to master them. And right now, we're turning their entire empire into an environment that only we know how to navigate. Across Meridian space, human ships continued their invisible work, preparing for the moment when the Empire would finally realize that their primitive enemies had already won the war before the first shot was fired in the open. The time for silence was coming to an end, and soon the galaxy would learn why you don't provoke a species that evolved on a death world. The first sign that something had fundamentally changed came from a distant mining outpost in the Meridian Empire's outer rim. The automated distress beacon activated at precisely 300 Imperial Standard Time, its message garbled and fragmented. By the time Meridian response ships arrived, they found only debris where a thriving facility had once stood. In the following hours, similar reports flooded in from across Meridian space. Strategic facilities disappeared. Military outposts went dark. Supply convoys vanished without a trace. The seemingly random technical failures that had plagued the Empire for months suddenly revealed themselves as precisely orchestrated steps in a vast military operation. Grand Admiral Zek stood in the Imperial War Room, his scales now a permanent shade of distressed gray as reports continued to pour in. "How?" he demanded of his staff. "How did they penetrate so deeply into our territory without detection?" The answer came not from his advisors, but from every communication system in the Meridian Empire simultaneously. The carefully maintained quantum communication network that had been subtly corrupted over months now served a new purpose, delivering humanity's message to every corner of the Empire at once. Admiral Chen's voice, translated perfectly into the Meridian language, echoed through command centers, civilian broadcasts, and military channels. "You believed us primitive. You thought our withdrawal was surrender. You were wrong. We didn't retreat. We were positioning our forces. We didn't surrender. We were learning your weaknesses. Now, you will understand why species from Deathworld survive." As if triggered by her words, human warships began dropping their stealth fields across Meridian space. The vessels revealed themselves to be nothing like the primitive craft the Meridians had expected. These were ships designed by a species that had never stopped preparing for war, even as they presented a peaceful face to the galaxy. The human vessels were angular, utilitarian, and utterly unlike the sleek Meridian designs. Where Meridian ships relied on energy shields and plasma weapons, human vessels bristled with a combination of technologies that defied conventional military doctrine. Railguns capable of launching projectiles at relativistic speeds sat alongside antimatter-catalyzed fusion torpedoes. Gravitational distortion fields complemented traditional armor plating. On the bridge of the HSS Thermopylae, Fleet Commander Elena Vasquez watched as her tactical display showed human forces revealing themselves across Meridian space. Years of careful planning had placed human ships in perfect position to strike at every critical target simultaneously. "All ships, execute Operation Nightfall," she ordered. "Remember your training. No mercy, no hesitation, no survivors." The Meridian military response was immediate but uncoordinated. Months of infrastructure degradation had left their command and control systems in chaos. Ships arrived at defensive positions only to find their targeting systems compromised. Weapons failed to fire as power distribution networks collapsed. Communications broke down as quantum relays transmitted contradictory orders. Near the Meridian core worlds, the Imperial First Fleet assembled to defend against what they believed would be a conventional assault. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had completely rewritten the rules of space warfare. Human ships didn't engage in traditional fleet actions. They struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, using their superior maneuverability and mixed weapons systems to confuse Meridian tactical doctrine. A single human vessel might launch a salvo of relativistic kinetic kill vehicles, followed by electromagnetic pulse generators, then close for point-blank engagement with plasma weapons. The Meridian defenders, trained to expect enemies to follow established patterns of space combat, found themselves unable to adapt to humanity's seemingly chaotic approach. Their ship's energy shields, optimized to defend against plasma weapons, provided little protection against kinetic impacts. Their targeting systems, designed to track energy signatures, struggled to lock onto vessels using gravitational distortion fields. Deep within Meridian territory, Dr. Wong finally revealed herself to her research colleagues. As alarms blared throughout the facility, she calmly stood from her workstation, her holographic disguise dissolving to reveal her human form. "I want to thank you," she told her shocked colleagues as human Marines materialized around the laboratory, their stealth systems deactivating. "Your casual discussions of your technology's limitations have been invaluable to our war effort." The Meridian scientists stared in horror as they realized how thoroughly they had been infiltrated. Their most secure research facility had been compromised not through brute force or sophisticated hacking, but through their own arrogant assumption that humans were too primitive to pose a real threat. Admiral Chen watched from her command center as Operation Nightfall unfolded exactly as planned. The Meridian Empire's military response was exactly what their simulations had predicted: fragmented, uncoordinated, and hopelessly inadequate against an enemy that had spent months preparing the battlefield. "Status report," she commanded. "Phase 3 proceeding ahead of schedule," her AI assistant responded. "Meridian military effectiveness is at 31% of baseline and falling. Their command structure is breaking down as compromised communication systems transmit conflicting orders. Civilian infrastructure is failing as automated systems execute our embedded commands." Chen nodded grimly. "And our casualties?" "Minimal." Meridian defensive responses remain predictable. They continue to defend against conventional attacks while our forces strike from unexpected vectors. The Meridian Empire had prided itself on its technological superiority, its sophisticated military doctrine, and its unified command structure. Now those very strengths were being turned against them. Their reliance on automated systems meant that human infiltration of their networks had compromised their entire defense. Their rigid military doctrine made them predictable to an enemy that had studied them for months. A junior officer approached Chen with a priority message. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 3 Meridian sector commanders." "Ignore them," Chen replied coldly. "The time for negotiation ended when they attacked our colony. Now they learn why you don't provoke a species that evolved fighting for survival every single day of its existence." Across Meridian space, humanity's vengeance continued unabated. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental reshaping of how the galaxy would view Deathworld species. The Meridians had thought themselves superior, had believed their technology and civilization made them unbeatable. They were about to learn that true strength comes not from technology or doctrine, but from the will to survive against all odds. It was a lesson written in the burning wreckage of their empire, taught by a species they had fatally underestimated. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations watched in stunned silence as the latest footage from Meridian space played across their neural interfaces. The mighty Meridian Empire, which had stood for 10,000 years as a pillar of galactic civilization, was being systematically dismantled by a species they had all dismissed as primitive Deathworlders. Ambassador Klex of the Varan Confederation was the first to speak. "This cannot be allowed to continue. The humans are destroying millennia of stability. We must intervene." "With what forces?" Ambassador Trill of the Zexta Republic responded, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety. "Look at how they fight. Our military doctrine is based on the same principles as the Meridians. We would fare no better against these survivors, finished Ambassador Ninra of the Outer Rim Alliance, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays. That's what we failed to understand. We saw their harsh world as a handicap. Instead, it was a forge. On the edges of Meridian space, the Varen Confederation's Third Fleet assembled in preparation to honor their military alliance with the Empire. Fleet Admiral Zexran watched his tactical displays with growing unease as reports of the human offensive continued to arrive. "Signal the Meridian Command," he ordered. "Tell them reinforcements are en route." But before his fleet could make the jump to hyperspace, new contacts appeared on their scanners. Human ships emerged from stealth, surrounding the Varen fleet in a three-dimensional sphere of overwhelming firepower. A transmission cut through their command frequencies. "This is Commander Sarah Martins of the Earth Defense Force. Your Empire has a choice. Remain neutral in this conflict, or share the Meridian's fate. You have 5 minutes to decide." Throughout the galaxy, similar scenes played out as human forces revealed themselves near every major military installation of the Meridian's allies. The message was clear. Anyone who intervened would face the same methodical destruction that was being visited upon the Meridian Empire. In the Imperial Palace on Meridian Prime, Grand Admiral Zex faced the High Council with scales now permanently locked in the gray of despair. "Our outer territories are lost. Our fleets are scattered. Our allies." He trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. "How?" demanded Emperor Vextral, his ceremonial armor doing nothing to hide his trembling. "How did a primitive species from a death world bring us to this?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Wong's image appeared on every display in the council chamber, her human features causing several council members to recoil in shock. "You still don't understand," she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human survival. "You think technology alone makes a civilization advanced. You never stop to consider that surviving on a death world requires something far more valuable: the ability to adapt, to innovate, to do whatever it takes to survive." She gestured, and new images filled their displays. Humans working in the vacuum of space, exploring ocean depths, surviving in Arctic wastes, and thriving in scorching deserts. "Every environment on Earth tried to kill us," Wong continued. "Every predator forced us to become smarter, faster, more resourceful. We didn't just survive our death world. We mastered it. And now we're doing the same to your empire." Across Meridian space, the careful groundwork laid by months of infiltration and sabotage bore fruit. Automated defense systems turned against their creators. Supply lines collapsed completely. Communication networks dissolved into chaos. The mighty empire that had stood for 10,000 years was being dismantled with surgical precision. The Meridian military, once the pride of the galaxy, found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Human ships appeared from nowhere to strike critical targets, then vanished before retaliation could be mounted. Ground forces materialized inside supposedly secure facilities, neutralized their objectives, and disappeared, leaving only destruction in their wake. On the frontier worlds of the Empire, planetary governors began surrendering to human forces without waiting for orders from the Imperial Center. They had seen the pattern. Worlds that surrendered were left intact but isolated, their infrastructure disabled but their populations unharmed. Those that resisted were systematically stripped of their ability to support civilization. Admiral Chen received the reports of surrenders with cold satisfaction. Status of Operation Breaking Point. Proceeding as planned, her AI reported. Meridian military cohesion has collapsed. 87% of their allies have declared neutrality. The remaining 13% are experiencing similar infrastructure failures to the initial Meridian campaign. And the civilian population. Panic is spreading as automated systems continue to fail. Their society was built on the assumption of technological infallibility. They have no protocols for dealing with systemic collapse. Chen nodded. This was the true power of humanity's approach. They weren't just defeating the Meridian military, they were demonstrating the fundamental weakness of a civilization that had forgotten how to deal with adversity. In the Galactic Council chamber, the representatives of 24 spacefaring civilizations came to a grim realization. They had all built their societies on the same principles as the Meridians: technological sophistication, rigid hierarchies, and the assumption of their own superiority. Now they watched as those principles crumbled before a species that had never forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. Ambassador Nenra addressed the council, their voice carrying the weight of prophecy. "We thought ourselves the pinnacle of evolution because we came from gentle worlds. We believed ourselves superior because we had moved beyond the need to struggle. The humans are teaching us that we were wrong. They are not primitive. They are what we could have been if our worlds had demanded more of us." As the Meridian Empire continued to collapse, a new understanding began to emerge in galactic civilization. The humans hadn't just defeated a superior force. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about the nature of true strength. It wasn't about technology or doctrine, or even numbers. It was about the will to survive, the ability to adapt, and the determination to never stop fighting. The fall of Meridian Prime was not marked by a grand battle or a heroic last stand. Instead, the heart of the mighty Meridian Empire succumbed to a cascade of systematic failures that left its gleaming towers dark and its streets filled with confused citizens who had never known hardship. Emperor Vextrol stood in his darkened throne room, watching through vast windows as his capital city's automated systems shut down one by one. The mighty environmental shields that had protected the city for millennia flickered and died. The gravity control systems that maintained perfect comfort for millions stuttered and failed. For the first time in recorded history, the citizens of Meridian Prime felt the true gravity of their world, the unfiltered touch of their sun. A human figure materialized in the throne room, the stealth field dissolving to reveal Admiral Sarah Chen. She wore no environmental suit, no protective gear, just a simple military uniform. To the Emperor's shock, she seemed completely unaffected by the increased gravity. "Your people are experiencing discomfort," she stated matter-of-factly. "This is what we call normal gravity on Earth. Your citizens are struggling to walk because their bodies have never had to adapt to real environmental challenges." Vextrol's scales shifted through patterns of fear and resignation. "Have you come to execute me, human?" "No," Chen replied, her voice carrying no trace of triumph or malice. "We've come to educate you. Your empire fell not because we were stronger, but because you forgot something fundamental about the nature of civilization." She gestured, and holographic images filled the throne room. Scenes from Earth's history, humans surviving ice ages, building cities in deserts, exploring ocean depths, and reaching for the stars. "Every advancement we made came from necessity," Chen continued. "Every technology we developed was an answer to a challenge that threatened our survival. We never had the luxury of assuming our environment would care for us." Across the former Meridian Empire, similar scenes played out. Human forces had systematically disabled the automated systems that had coddled countless generations of citizens. But instead of the expected chaos and death, something else emerged: adaptation. On world after world, Meridian citizens faced with actual challenges began to remember ancestral skills their species had long forgotten. Agricultural knowledge preserved in cultural archives was suddenly relevant again. Engineering principles that had been purely theoretical found practical application. Dr. Wang, now operating openly as Earth's chief xenobiologist, studied the phenomenon with fascination. "They're not dying," she reported to the Earth Council. "They're remembering how to live." In the Galactic Council chamber, now reconvened after weeks of chaos, Ambassador Nenra presented their analysis. "The humans didn't just defeat the Meridian Empire. They forced us all to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our technological advancement came at the cost of our adaptability. The evidence was undeniable. On worlds where human forces had disabled automated systems, local populations were already showing signs of rapid adaptation. Physical strength was returning as bodies were forced to work against natural gravity. Problem-solving skills sharpened as citizens faced actual challenges rather than relying on AI systems. Admiral Chen stood before the Earth Defense Council, delivering her final report on Operation Breaking Point. The Meridian Empire as it existed is finished, but something new is emerging from its ruins, something potentially stronger. And the other galactic powers? A council member asked. They're learning, Chen replied. Already we're seeing voluntary shutdowns of automated systems across multiple civilizations. They've realized that comfort isn't the same as strength. In orbit above Meridian Prime, Fleet Commander Vasquez watched as her ships maintained their vigilant guard. But instead of preventing escape, they were now preventing interference, giving the Meridian species time to remember how to be strong. It's ironic, she commented to her staff. They thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy. Instead, we taught them that there's no such thing as a permanent position of strength. You either keep adapting or you fade away. On Earth, the Defense Council convened to discuss the future of galactic relations. The holographic displays showed scenes from across former Meridian space, citizens learning to farm without automated systems, engineers rediscovering manual repair techniques, young Meridians exercising in natural gravity for the first time in generations. We've changed the galaxy, Admiral Chen stated, not just through military victory, but by demonstrating a fundamental truth. True civilization isn't about eliminating challenges. It's about maintaining the strength to face them. The council chamber was quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had not just won a war. They had initiated a transformation in galactic society. The age of automated comfort was giving way to a new era where adaptation and resilience would determine a species' place in the cosmic order. In the ruins of the Meridian Empire's automated paradise, a new society was beginning to emerge. It would not be as comfortable as the old one, not as effortless or automated, but it would be stronger, more resilient, more alive. On a balcony overlooking the capital city, Emperor Vextrol stood with Admiral Chen, watching as his people began the long process of relearning how to truly live. His scales, no longer shifting in patterns of despair, showed the deep blue of determination. "We thought we were living," he said quietly, "but we were just existing. Your people have given us back something we didn't even know we had lost, the chance to grow stronger through adversity." Chen nodded, understanding in her eyes. That's the real lesson of Earth, of all death worlds. It's not about surviving hardship. It's about being transformed by it. Your people are finally on that path. As the sun set on Meridian Prime, its light no longer filtered through environmental shields. The city below was dark, but not dead. In homes and streets, citizens were learning to light fires, to cook without automation, to solve problems with their minds rather than relying on AI. The galaxy was changing, transforming from a collection of comfortable, stagnant civilizations into something new, something that remembered the value of struggle, the importance of adaptation, the strength that comes only from facing real challenges. And humanity, the species that had never forgotten these lessons, stood ready to guide their galactic neighbors not as conquerors, but as teachers. The age of comfortable stagnation was over. The age of meaningful growth had begun.